me with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. These are the night terrors, folks. The night terrors. The terrors of the night. These are tales as old as time. And, well, at least as much time as it takes to put them out there. But hope you guys are doing wonderful. Welcome to the last leg of your holiday weekend. Hope you had a great extra days off for those of you that got them and were able to spend them with people that you love and like being around. And thank you for those of you who still chose to hang out right here. That's really cool. I always take great pride in that. That's so many of you are. Every day I turn on the lights and there you are, just waiting to come in. So it warms my heart, and I mean that very, very sincerely. It sounds tongue-in-cheek, but honest to God, it's still one of the I don't know, it's such an honor. I don't know how else to put it. So thank you very much. That's still something I'm always grateful. I don't need a holiday to be grateful for that. I'm just grateful every time I start the show. So thank you so much. And of course, I am not alone here. I've got the firstborn right here with me. The first branch on my family tree is joining me tonight, and this is Mr. Sheldon Thomas. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, feeling well, feeling merry as we head on into the Christmas holiday.
Jesus. You could always apply for a Hallmark or something, couldn't you?
I could.
But I think, ladies and gentlemen, in news brief here, I think we figured out some of the latency that Sheldon's dealing with, and it's because he's living in Windows XP. That's what happened. Sheldon camping out on the grassy knoll there or something.
That's right.
Well,
I like my field.
It's a field of dreams right there.
That's
absolutely. Right. Best Bill Gates could throw together for you. But that's probably not actually why. I got to look into why that is, but throughout the course of the night, you'll see Sheldon's lips moving absolutely different from when his voice is coming through, and that's due to some weird latency that I'm trying to track down. But other than that, it's kind of cool. It's like dubbing for a kung fu movie every night. So we'll deal with it until I can sort out what the hell's going on and get.
One day they'll hire me.
Who's hiring you?
I said one day they'll hire me for the kung fu movie. I mean, one day it'll happen.
Oh, absolutely. Good. It's good to dream. It's good to have dreams.
I'm in my field of dreams. That's right.
That's right. But anyway, we've got a show tonight for you folks. This is the Night Terrors. These are the shorter format versions of the Paranormal Portal, about an hour. And we're going to dive into cryptids tonight because there was a story I was going to do last night, but we just didn't have the time. And it's kind of a cool one because they don't come up much, but this is an encounter, and it was from phantomsandmonsters.com, and which is Lon Strickler's site. And Lon's a great guy and has given us the green light to showcase articles from his site. And so I really want to read it because these are ones that really trip me up. You know, of course, the Bigfoot Dogman stuff is more run-of-the-mill, your average cryptid kind of experience. Most commonly is a Bigfoot experience, but second, of course, would be Dogman. I think there's, it's probably maybe even a toss-up between which one is more prevalent, but the other odd ones are the ones that really intrigue me as well, and it's the ones where people are bumping into something looking like an insect. And oftentimes we attribute those to, extraterrestrials. Maybe there are rumored to be these praying mantis type of aliens that are visiting, and are generally pretty, by the sounds of it, they're generally pretty ruthless. They're just kind of heartless bastards that do as they will because they don't regard us very much with, they don't think that we're much anything other than maybe some bald apes, So I don't know if there's any truth to that or whatever, but I'm just telling you what I've heard through the years. But the mantises are generally speaking not the kind of extraterrestrials you want to bump into if you had your choice. You probably wouldn't pick the mantises because they're pretty brutal. So whatever they are, who knows? But now whether or not they're even extraterrestrials, another discussion as well. There's no way to know. Because not always. Sometimes people see them in concert with UFOs or UAPs or whatever you want to call them, but sometimes they're encountered all on their own out in the middle of nowhere, in some wild, desolate places. So, do they live here? Are they part of our world somehow? Are they able to peek in or something to that nature? And I don't know, but I was really excited to bring you this story. So we did a cryptid corner tonight to be able to accommodate that. So how's that sound to you, Sheldon?
I think that sounds brilliant.
Have you ever heard of the UFO, the aliens that look like mantises?
No, that was news to me last night, actually. That was brand new to me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's so much about this stuff. It's hard to know. It's hard to quantify, but we're going to dive into it all the same, and maybe there's something in the narrative of the story that'll tip us off to what the hell's going on here. But yeah, it's creepy. It's really creepy. Yeah, and again, to reiterate what I was saying last night is that, okay, let's say it's not extraterrestrial. Let's say it's just some large insect. To me, that would be the most terrifying thing to run into, because when you think of insects, you don't think of things that reason or consider. They just do. Like if they need to kill, they just kill because they need to eat, and then they eat. And it's not like there's an intellectual process or any kind of emotional barometer that they go by. They eat. They just kill things because they need to eat. And so that's why I would be, I think, extra terrified of something of that nature that, obviously wasn't extraterrestrial, because if it sees you and it's big as you or around your size, it's not going to think twice, and there again, we get into the whole, well, what defenses do we really have? And compared to the wild world, we have nothing. We are helpless little babes, so it's a terrifying prospect for sure.
It's another thing that kind of I've just been thinking about this. The other thing that kind of terrifies me about that idea is that a giant bug-like creature, whether it's alien or not, interdimensional, whatever it could be, it scares me because, like, when we watch bugs eat in our world, watching little bugs eat each other, whatever, it's not like they attack them and then they're dead and then they eat them. They
yeah.
When they have them, they just eat. Like, they don't wait. They don't try to neutralize. They just start eating right away. It's like eating while they're still alive and still squirming is still just kicking. Something creepy.
It's just horrid. Yeah, there's no empathy involved at all. It's just like, hey, I'm hungry. Good. I got food, and start eating. Yeah, you're right. That's just another part of it. Like all of the mammals and stuff, they attack things and kill it. And once it's dead, then they eat it. And even most reptiles. I mean, there's some things, some snakes that eat their prey as it's, still allegedly alive, but generally speaking, nature kills its prey and then it eats it, and probably because it's a safety mechanism. You don't want a deer that's kicking on the way down, with those sharp hooves and stuff, I mean, that puts the animal at risk for damage and stuff. So, but these things, I agree. Ugh, yeesh. All right. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see what the article is that's been in present that I've been holding on to since last night. And but first, all I can say is I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. All right, there we are, folks. It is time to dig into it. And as I said, the first article in question tonight is coming from phantomsandmonsters.com. So let's get right at it here. And this is from November 26, 2021. So it's really very recent. I guess he published it on Friday. Okay. So that's incredibly recent. It says, red-eyed insectoid entity lunges at children in Merseyside barn. And I'm not sure. This is England. Okay. 4 children in Merseyside, England are playing in an old abandoned barn when they're attacked by an unknown red-eyed insectoid being. They are left hysterical after the incident. Yeah, who can blame them? Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess it was reported in the Liverpool Echo in October 2020. So it was last year. The 4 children were playing in a barn when they came across the unknown creature. 4 children were left hysterical after an unknown creature in an abandoned and haunted barn lunged towards them. In May 1951, that's quite a bit older. All right, so anyway, we're going in the Wayback Machine here. The children went to play in one of the old deserted barns that once stood on Robbie's Car Lane. Dozens of locals recalled the rumors about a terrifying thing which would leave the dilapidated barn after dark and roam Roby and parts of Huyton in the present-day metropolitan borough of Knowsley, Merseyside, England. But despite their parents' warnings of the structures falling in on them, rough sleepers living in the former farm buildings and hearing strange stories about the place from the other children, they still decided to explore the haunted barn. The creature was described as having dark brown, shiny skin, an insect-like shell on its back, 2 huge red eyes. When it stood, it was over 6 feet in height. In May 1951, a gang of 4 children, Tony, aged 8, Jill, aged 7, and Alan and George, both aged 10, went to play in one of the old deserted barns on Robbie's Car Lane. George's parents had warned him about playing in dilapidated old houses by telling them the places could fall in on him and that tramps living in the former farm buildings might attack and even kill him. But George was a very disobedient lad, and it was he who suggested exploring the old haunted barn on Car Lane. He'd heard strange stories about the place from other children, and one boy had told George that the barn was used as an air raid shelter during the war. The 4 children ran down Roby Road and onto Car Lane, all led by George, the self-appointed gang leader. They reached the deserted barn, and being a typical English May afternoon, it began to rain. The sound of rainfall on the tiles scared the youngest gang member, Jill. George had a box of matches and told everyone to find anything that could burn to make a fire. "This can be our new den," he said, striking a Swan Vesta match. "I found a candle," said an excited Alan, and he picked up the 3-inch stub of a candle and handed it to George, who gently pulled the blackened wick out slightly and then lit it. A small fire made from the splintered wooden drawer, newspapers, dry leaves, and twigs was lit. And now, by the light of the candle and the fire, the gang noticed the strange graffiti on one of the walls. There were what looked like charcoal sketches of people in possibly 1930s and 1940s clothes and hairstyles, and a number of head and shoulders portraits. The sketches were quite good, and the artist was undoubtedly talented. The children were not aware that the drawings on the wall had been made in the war years when people gathered in the barn, which served as a sort of ad hoc air raid shelter. The artist is unknown, but he or she might be the same artist who painted very similar portraits of people from the 1940s in a bituminous paint on the walls of the air raid shelter under Wave Tree Park on Edge Lane. The artistic style was later described as being very similar to the Roby artwork. On the same wall as the charcoal drawing, there was a very creepy sketch of some unearthly creature with huge round eyes, pointed ears like a cat, and a massive mouth ringed with pointed teeth, and long, spindly arms and legs. The thing had a pointed tail reminiscent of a wasp stinger, and next to this alarming life-size drawing, there were strange symbols and glyphs like a coded message. And then the large block letter words, "Keep out." Well, Jill didn't like this drawing of the monster one bit, and said they should all leave the place. That's the boogeyman who eats little girls, George told Jill. Well, George is a dick.
Yeah.
And he winked at Alan, who realized his friend was just telling a fib to scare the girl. Alan said, yeah, I've heard about him, Mr. Bogey. They found girls' skeletons in here. All of a sudden, the children heard a low moaning sound, and something came into the room on all fours from a hole in the wall. Oh, that's how it starts. Ugh. At first, the gang thought it was a dog, but as it came within the I don't know what the hell this is, purloe of illumination given off by the fire, the children saw this was no dog. It was that thing that had been depicted on the wall drawing. It had dark, brown, shiny skin, an insect-like shell on its back, two huge red eyes that George later described as looking like belly buttons. What? Okay. I don't know what kind of belly buttons George has been dealing with, but anyway, and a large, gaping, fanged mouth. It stood up, and it was well over 6 feet in height. It lunged at the kids with long, spindly arms and clawed hands, and then screamed, and they screamed and fled from the barn. The gang narrowly missed being run down as they ran in blind panic across Ruby Road. They all went to Jill's house on Station Road, and the girl's mother was furious when she saw that her daughter had wet herself. Jill was so hysterical she couldn't tell her parents what had happened. And when George told the girl's mother and father about the monster, they didn't believe him. I mentioned this incident on the Billy Butler show years ago, and lots of people contacted me on air. They recalled the barn on Carr Lane with the weird drawings, and most maintained that it was demolished around 1960. Is that it? Okay, that is it.
Oh, wow.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's got to be horrid. Ugh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what these things are, but
I think out of all the cryptids, that's the one I would be the last on my list to hope I ever see in my life. No.
Yeah.
Nope.
No. Well, I mean, there's a whole bucket full of different ones that I wouldn't want to meet. You know, I mean, really, like any of them. And here's the reason why is because we just don't know. I mean, people have ideas. I've heard ideas about, like, even Bigfoots, for instance. The ideas are they are the wise keepers of the forest. They are the guardians. They are the feral people. They are the wild men. They are mindless apes. They are everything in between. So you've got this whole spectrum of something it might be, but how do you know which one it is? And that's with the Bigfoot, where there's lots of encounters, lots of people have come face to face with them. Now, granted, you'd have to assume they don't really want to kill people, like the Bigfoot I'm speaking of, because there are people that meet them, and they are able to tell what they saw because they lived. And the same is true for the Dogman, which is usually much more aggressive. It aggressively comes at people and just, really is into the intimidation factor, but still people are able to tell what they saw because they didn't die. But maybe there's a reason we don't hear many of these bug claims, and that's because mostly people don't make it to tell what they saw. I don't know.
It could, that very well could be, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like all Bigfoot tries to do is get you out of the area.
Usually,
Dogmen don't really give a crap about us, and so they just show up and leave. They don't really see us as a threat or anything. But maybe that's the survivorship bias. We're always looking at what is reported. Mm-hmm. What about what's not reported and what could be out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that really makes you shudder. Android says, what if you guys saw a Dogman on the next mountaintop over from you? Would you still not want to see it? If I was going to see one, that's the way I'd want to see it. It's like way
very far away
where I have plenty of opportunity to change my choices for that day. I would not want to see it like on the other side of a hedge I'm standing next to, which is generally where a lot of the sightings happen, is real close proximity. For Dogmen, it's surprising. They seem to really enjoy stalking and getting really close, and then sometimes just, making themselves known, sometimes just leaving people in a state of agitation. But yeah, if I was going to see one, Android, that's exactly the way I'd want to see it. It's like, it's like I'd love to see a tornado, but not coming at me. I'd like to see it going across a plane in a different direction from where I am, because I think those things are there. I mean, they're terrifying, of course, but there's also a fascination with watching a force of nature like that, you know. And I think that it's maybe a humbling experience, and I think it would be interesting to watch. As you know, God forbid anybody was hurt or anything, but you know what I mean. So I'd like to be able to dictate the terms that I see it. But
It's possible we were next to one at one point.
yeah, I know. Like it went right over the house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the clouds were definitely whirling. I mean, they were like churning, but yeah, it was never.
You heard that loud wind sound.
Yeah, it sounded like a train. You remember that? Yeah, down on the
Yep.
beach. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that too. That was
You're like, get inside.
Yeah.
Time to get inside.
Yeah. Now, yeah, I wasn't even patient about it. It's like, nope, time to go in now. But yeah, so I mean, there's that's the other part of it, is we just don't know for sure. There's lots of ideas of what these things are, you know, and then when you get to these more odd ones, like even the skinwalkers and the what do they call them, the pale walkers, which are basically what I assume to be rakes or ghouls.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't know what they're doing. We don't know what they want. We don't know why they're there. And that's the part that's weird, is how do you trust it? What if you're wrong? You know, that's the thing.
That's the thing. Even with Bigfoot, I'm sure there are days you can be very wrong about them. You know, I mean, even though people say that they're harmless, they're this, that, but does that speak for 100% of them, or just maybe 99?
Good point. I don't know. I really don't know. But in the other part is would you want to bet on it? I mean, do you trust that enough to bet on it? And maybe you're right, but maybe you're wrong. And that's the part that's terrifying about all of these, because again, when we talk about physical ability versus us versus a Bigfoot, and there's no comparison. We are like toddlers, you know, to a very big, powerful creature. And the same is true for a dog man. I mean, we're like a kitten, you know. That's about how much defense we have that we can rally. The only edge we have is the ability to use our brains and hopefully have some tools around that can help us at least defend ourselves. But without that, out in the middle of the woods, if you don't have something with you, you're at their mercy. I mean, really and truly. So it's kind of a frightening prospect.
It is.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, as far as the Insectoid, or that the story we're reading, are these stories of sightings that are existent and are out there, are they located anywhere specific, or is it just all over, spread out, you know, random?
Well, like for this one, excuse me, it was from Merseyside, England. I've heard of some in the south. People around swampy areas have bumped into these, I don't know, mantis-looking creatures. I don't know. I don't know. See, that's the thing. As far as I know, there's no established, this is what they like. This is where they live. This is where they prefer to be. Like with Bigfoot and Dogman, it's pretty well regarded that for the most part they like to stay, especially Dogman, likes to stay in proximity to waterways. And I don't know if that's a navigational thing, or I don't know if it's because of the moisture in the air is important for them. And generally speaking, I think Bigfoot usually do too, but there are also reports of Bigfoot being seen in high deserts and stuff where there's no rain, and you know, and in like Mexico. And so if that's the case, then you know, it's not an absolute fact, but maybe they prefer to be in you know, hydrated, moist areas, like you know, and it could very well be. I imagine it probably would have to be, because you know, when you're carrying around a coat of fur or hair, you're gonna get hot, you know, and so being around water is probably pretty nice, because you know you can cool down. Whereas if not, then you're suffering in the elements until you can find a way to cool down. So I don't know, but I will say
I wanted to ask you in the chat this one question too.
Sure.
I'm curious what the chat's going to say too.
Absolutely.
What cryptid fascinates you the most?
I think they all fascinate me. I mean, really, and for different reasons. Because I think the fascinating thing for me about Bigfoot is, and this is, I'm just going to answer because chat will take a while, but I think I think for me the interesting thing is that they do seem to have intelligence. The Bigfoot do seem to have intelligence, and they do seem to be on our level of intelligence for the most part. Like they're very, very intelligent. They're very, very capable, and they choose to observe and watch and to be mostly benign as a presence in our worlds. Usually, sometimes they get rambunctious and things go sideways, but normally speaking, they kind of do their thing, but they kind of keep an eye on us, and I think that's interesting. Now for Dogman, I find that interesting because for many reasons. One of which is it really does lend credibility to the idea that for every legend there is a bit of truth. The werewolf legends of Europe. I mean, for a long time, those were considered flights of fancy and silliness of maybe more primitive minds. But now people are seeing these things and, we call them Dogman now, but maybe they've had many names throughout history. And yet, again, they seem to have an intelligence as well because they don't actively attack people. They may, and that's the ones you don't know about. But for the most part, when people see them, they are aggressively intimidating, and then they just push you out, and then you go and that's the extent of it. Now, less fascinating for me are things like these, the ghoul, White Walkers, whatever terms you choose. I think those just seem really creepy to me, and I think the reason why is because I really kind of have an idea in my head that they are the ghouls of our legends, and they used to subsist and persist by devouring the corpses of people that had died. And I think that possibly the reason that they don't continue to do that is because people are embalmed now. It might not be a valid food source for them anymore, but they still might have a hankering for people, And so that's kind of creepy and horrible. But unless most of all is these insect things, I don't know what the hell they are, but I assume they're not working with a real high degree of intellectual ability. They are just these huge things. I don't know, but I don't know.
That's one cryptid I could die never seeing and be happy and never learning more about.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to be a part of the show, you're going to hear about them from time to time. But,
well, yeah, but I don't want to be anywhere near that at all.
Android answered you. Why don't you read that?
All right. The most fascinating to me is Sasquatch because they have the most reports / sightings, and because they have the most historical stories and myths from old civilizations. Very true. That's not a bad point. Now, what is a drop bear?
Okay.
Eliza was saying drop bear. I don't know what that is.
So drop. Well, let me say what Ruger said first. I'll go into that in a second. Favorite cryptid, okay. Keith Richards. The guitarist for the Rolling Stones. That's great.
Oh my god.
Drop bears. I didn't know either because I'd see them pop up every once in a while. And finally, I was talking to my friend Cade, who has the Believe podcast, and he's like, "Oh, mate," it's like, "No, there's basically things we tell tourists to try to freak them out, but basically it's koala bears." So,
oh, yeah, okay.
So there is a concept, I think, where they eat from time to time. They might eat like fermented leaves and stuff, and end up getting drunk and fall out of trees. But they're not an actual beast that attacks people. So it's just one of those things.
I agree. That might be my favorite one because it's a funny story.
Yeah, it is. That's a great story. So what else do we got here? Ruger. Yeah, I read Ruger's. Honestly, Chupacabra. We hardly hear anything about the creature after the early sightings. Yeah, you're right. That's by GN Crossbone Full Cloth. It's a weird one. And the other thing that's weird about the Chupacabra is the myriad of descriptions that people have attributed to the Chupacabra. So there's some people that are attributing this almost kangaroo, marsupial-looking thing. There's the classic description out of Peru or wherever it's from, that it's supposed to be this little 3-4 foot creature that has the spiny, almost quills on its back, like, and it has two fangs and sucked the blood out of goats, and that's where the name chupacabra comes from. The translation is goat sucker. But there's all kinds of other things. There's this coyote thing. Looks like a mange coyote, but it's not. But people are calling that a chupacabra too. So it's weird how this idea of chupacabra has kind of morphed into being several possible things. But the classical descriptions I don't think have ever been claimed to be seen up here in the States. They're mostly in South America or wherever those sightings come from. But let's see, what's another one? Favorite cryptid, Keith Richards. Let's see. Rachel says the rake or dogman for high strangeness mystery. Yeah, those are weird. Those are very weird. Anybody else? Extraterrestrial aliens from Brene Cruz. Let's see. Drop bears. That's great. Full cloth. Talking about the Puerto Rican chupacabra. Yeah, exactly. Puerto Rico. Thank you. I couldn't remember exactly where it came from.
Oh yeah, there were some Mothmans too.
Oh, Mothman. Yeah. So actually, if you're interested in the Mothman, I would suggest start reading phantomsandmonsters.com, because I know Lon Strickler and his team of affiliates, research team, have been really researching that, and they've got some pretty cool takes on what's going on with that. You know, believe what you want, but I think they're onto something very interesting, and at the very least, there's a ton of reports on phantomsandmonsters.com that you'd want to check out if you're into the Mothman. But it is pretty wild. Let's see. Anybody else answer? Friggin' fairies.
Glimmerman.
Okay. Glimmerman. Okay, that's the kind of predator thing that we were talking about last night.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is weird too. So there's for any of you that don't know, there's basically these humanoid things that look like they're bipedal and maybe 4 or 5 feet tall, 6 feet tall. There's a whole range that I've heard reported, but they appear to be basically transparent or translucent. So when people do witness them, it's like what people witness when they watch the Predator movies when he was invisible. They see that form, and the foliage behind them shift with the form, so they can get an idea of what this thing looks like, but nobody really knows what they are. And those are popping up actually more lately in the last couple years than I think ever. So whatever's going on with those or where they came from, I don't know, but they're very interesting as well. Chances are many of them have always been here. It's just that if people did see them, they just never talked about it, because we're kind of living in a unique time right now where people feel empowered to talk about these things more than ever before. It wasn't that long ago that saying that you believed in ghosts or UFOs or any of this paranormal stuff was enough to get you mocked and committing, essentially social suicide. People would just think, oh, that's one of those people, and whispering about you. So we're finally in a state in our country, in our nation, in our world, where people feel like it's okay to have these discussions. And I think that's really cool. So as such, we're learning about more things that are out there because more people are sharing their stories. We're a culture of stories. If people didn't share what they'd seen, we wouldn't have near the anecdotal evidence to go through to look for patterns, to look for clues about what these things are. So I think that's a very exciting take, and it's a very exciting time for that reason. So any other answers, Sheldon?
Trolls.
Internet or creatures?
Good point.
Which way are you going with that, Gigi? There's both. I'm kind of not fond of internet trolls, but there is, here's the thing with terms like trolls. Now, goblins are another kind of apparently real little creature that's out there. But trolls, I think, might have been one of those terms that maybe very much could have been used to describe Bigfoot, Sasquatch, one of the many names out there, because trolls were generally, to my knowledge, pretty big creatures. They weren't like these little diminutive things skirting through bushes. They were large creatures, And so I wonder about that. I mean, there's so many names already for Bigfoots and such creatures. There's the Yowie, the Urin, the Alma, the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Grassman, Wildman, Boogers, Wood Boogers, Skunk Ape. Then there's the Woodwose, the Gray Man, the Grogok. There's tribal names by the hundreds, or at least about 100 tribal names in the Americas alone. And then there's so many more different terms that are used to describe these things. So could that have been what some of our ancestors might have referred to as trolls? Maybe. I just think that that's very possible. I don't know. Just my idea.
Western NY Bigfoot says, after Hadron Collider started, in my honest opinion, a multitude of sightings have happened, a broad range of cryptic and paranormal entities.
That's an interesting take, too. I mean, did the Hadron Collider actually open gateways or open portals where things are coming through more? And that's could be plausible. I don't know. I think there's so many different things going on. Again, like I just had talked about, now people are able to have the discussions more than ever before, and find like-minded people to talk about these things with. But certainly there's other things, technological advances, the nuclear bombs that went off and were tested for a long time on our planet, that do things to shift the vibration and consciousness of and possibilities. Did that bring things to us from out in the stars? Did that like wave a red flag going, hey, check out what's going on here, and bring us a bunch of extraterrestrial attention? Maybe the Hadron Collider did. Maybe it's, any number of things. At that point, you could even say that Chernobyl may have caused a chain reaction of things like that to happen. Could be. And, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima, all of those. You never know. I mean, anything is possible. And it's certainly concerning. But I don't think it's and this isn't me putting down anybody's ideas, but I don't think it's attributable to any one thing. Maybe it's all of these things. Maybe it's a natural biorhythm. We're just alive in a time of transition, that something is going on, in our universe right now, where things are changing and transitioning, and as such, we're becoming exposed to a lot more things than we used to know about. And I don't know. It's anybody's guess. There's no one answer to any of this. There's just possibilities. So
True.
Yeah. So with experiments involving the collider, scientists have discovered the weight of rainbows. It turns out they're pretty light. Man, she's just always coming at it.
She got us.
I drove through a rainbow one time. I mean, literally drove through it. It was with Don.
Yeah, you told me that. That's smart.
If that doesn't, I'm telling you, Don has seen a lot of weird stuff since he's been involved with this show. That poor guy, he was doing just fine in his own little world. And then I came along, and he and I together have seen some really strange stuff. And you and I, Sheldon, have seen a lot of strange stuff. So that's just that I don't know, maybe I'm the strange one, right?
Yeah, true. It's all you.
Yeah, well, whatever I am, so are you. So, but yeah, that was a great story. I think it's interesting stuff. I think it's creepy as hell. I don't know where this thing went after the barn was destroyed. Did this thing move on? Did it just run out of its lifespan? Who knows? Maybe it got stranded over here from some other dimension, and that's why it was sticking around, and maybe it just ran out of years. Who knows? I know it sounds terrible, but I hope so. Far be it for me to say what deserves to live and not, but God, things like that, I just don't want to know. Let's get to the next one. That was a great story. And again, special thank you to Lon Strickler, because he's bringing us the next one as well. And this one's from November 24th, 2021. And I'm going to do my best to pronounce this, folks, but just full disclosure, I have a very Midwestern palate, and it doesn't shape exotic words real well. But this is Skinwalker Ye Nald Lushi, or Lushi, Naald Lushi, and Counter Accounts. And this is a Skinwalker story from phantomsandmonsters.com. And This is 3 Skinwalker or Yinadlushi encounter accounts that detail bizarre encounters with these native witches. Have you ever had a similar personal experience? And ladies and gentlemen, if any of you out there have had experiences, not only should you contact me via email to be a guest on the podcast, but you should also contact Lon Strickler and get it recorded, because he's keeping a database of these things. And I think it's important to contribute to these databases, just because anywhere that there's a repository of information makes researching so much better. And you may have details or have seen something that no one else has seen, or you will describe something in a way that will help other people. I don't know. Just, I think it's really important to chronicle your account on one of these sites. You know, whether it's a Bigfoot, go to BFRO, or one of the other sites. If it's extraterrestrial UFO, go to MUFON, do one of those reports. But, you know, these things are important, because the more information we have, the more we can learn. So, all right. So this is stories Lon received over time. It says, I'm a Native American, and according to what my family has told me, talking about these witches isn't exactly a good thing, and basically a sin. Around the time I was 7 or so, I had gotten a Youth 22 rifle as a gift. We were camping out at a property my family owns, and I was doing a target practice, and I noticed a gray figure in the corner of my eyes behind a tree. Take note, I am vision impaired and need glasses, so something like this isn't uncommon. Well, I simply ignored the gray figure and continued inaccurately shooting, and I then saw the thing get bigger, as if this gray figure was getting closer. So I lowered my rifle and looked over, and as I did, there was a rotten smell, and I decided to lay my rifle on the log I was sitting on and ran into the camper where the rest of the family was. My dad asked why I ran in so abruptly, and I just said I saw a cougar, as cougars aren't common in the area. My dad replied that they don't usually attack people. I just wanted to be inside. I was scared poopless 90% of the time as a kid. Later that night, I heard screaming coming from the woods that sounded like my little cousin. I opened my eyes and saw my cousin's hand out of the top bunk. I was scared and decided to close my eyes and just ignore it. I had never heard any screaming or seen any pale figures from that point on. Wow. The next one. I've always enjoyed camping in places where people ought not to go. Caves no one but me can get into. Cliffs considered too dangerous by other experienced climbers, and I even spent a night on top of Mount Everest. To say that I make undeniably stupid decisions is an understatement. But this one time really had me screwed. There's this bit of land in Arizona that is said to have belonged to some Native American tribe some time ago. It's really barren, but there is this old house on there that seems to have been abandoned for decades, if not longer. I'd long planned to stay up there for a bit, and since the pandemic has kept everyone indoors, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to spend a week there. August comes around and I make my way to that old house. I enter through the front door and see it. There's a coyote just inside. Great. I didn't know there were coyotes in the area, and I slowly back out and away from it, right up until it stood on its hind legs. This coyote stood up onto its hind legs, and then it talked. I've been waiting for you, and it said my name. Why don't you come on in? I screamed and started running. I got maybe 200 yards away from the house before tripping over. I looked behind me and saw it leaving the house. It didn't look like a coyote anymore. This is hard to explain, but it looked as if it were turning into me. I didn't stay to get a good look as I got up and ran the 1.5 miles back to my car. I'd hiked to the house. I managed to get away and never saw it again, but then again, I'm never going back to that house again either. Yeesh. Okay, so that's a belief about the Skinwalkers. The legend of it, and this is what I remember from covering it on the show, but there was a time when they were revered. These Skinwalkers were revered in their tribes. They were great warriors that helped to fight off the Spanish during the whole their whole colonization time when they were expanding outward. And these skinwalkers were really treasured warriors of their tribes and were very successful in fighting back the Spanish and saving the traditional lands for the tribe. Now, somewhere, somehow, in the course of this, after this, they became corrupt, and they started to want to acquire more and more power, and that's when they were cast out of the tribes and considered, evil and problematic and such. So there is a belief that they are indeed, people, but albeit supernaturally endowed people. So just to give that background.
So in a sense, they could be trying to lure in people to kind of take their place.
Right. Yep. Could be exactly it. Yeah.
That's
disturbing, huh?
That if that's true, that is incredibly intimidating, because that implies that there's no way that they always fail. Like let's say they're out there and these stories are real and all that. There's no way they always fail. So that could mean potentially that there could be skinwalkers among us, in a sense, in societies and wherever.
That is true. Yep. Very good point. Let's get to the last one on this list, and then we'll discuss it some more. It says, excuse me, I'm not Native American, but I have a skinwalker story. I go along with a friend to check on his grandmother and grandfather's Hogan. I don't know what that means. His grandfather is in the hospital for a spell. He had some kind of accident there on the property, and we get to the place, and we're hanging out for a while, drinking some beers. My friend suddenly goes real still, puts his finger up to his lips like he wants me to be quiet. I hear this shuffling noise coming from just outside. My friend, who is Hopi, has dark skin. Suddenly, though, his face turns several shades paler. The shuffling becomes louder, as if someone is coming towards the door. My friend grabs a piece of burning firewood out of the stove, goes over towards the door, and hurls it out in front of the Hogan. We hear it hit the ground with a thunk. Immediately there's this high-pitched, howdy laughter, like something like the Wicked Witch of the West. Every hair on my body stands up. My friend starts yelling out in his native language and screaming obscenities in English, and all I can do is pull out my pocket knife and hold it at the ready. The person outside just keeps laughing. I finally get the cojones to move over to the, or cojones, sorry, to move over towards the door and peek out. My heart nearly jumps out of my chest. Only several feet from me is this skinwalker. It's leaning up against the wall just to the right, thin and scraggly, covered with these mangy animal skins, and staring back at me with these eyes like dull black marbles. I'm convinced it's a woman. I see what look to be breasts coming beneath the skins, but thin and sagging like she's really old. Her face is covered with splotches of hair, and I can't tell if it's real or some kind of get-up. It's pretty dark. I let out a bit of a scream, though I hate to admit it. Then it just turns and jogs off towards these hills, to the other side of the Hogan. That's the only time I've ever seen a skinwalker since. I hope to never see one again. Yeesh. Yeah, that's really creepy. So you're right, though. They do seem to they do prey on people, but for what reason, I don't know. If they can derive power from people, like if they suck some, they can capture the life force of a person or something like that. I don't know. I'm really kind of sketchy on that.
That's what I'm saying, because it's in every single one of these stories. There's opportunity for them to do something, and they don't. It's like they're trying to willingly get you to come to them, and maybe it's a permission thing, kind of like other cryptids, like the black-eyed children. Maybe it for some reason it needs permission. I don't know.
Sure. I mean, that would be a pretty fair guess, because otherwise, why wouldn't that thing, that like say just this last story, why wouldn't it just run in and attack them? Well, maybe
sounds like it could have.
Yeah. Well, but it didn't. And that's
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Why
Yeah,
didn't it? So maybe you're onto something there. Maybe it is. Maybe it is something they just can't do. Android says, so glad you're starting to read reports from phantoms and monsters. I hope it continues to be a continued trend. It's great work by Lon and his team. Yeah, absolutely. And it's with Lon's blessing that we're able to do this, folks. I have talked to Lon and said, hey, we'd love to share some of your work on the show. Is that fine? And he said, yeah, go ahead. So, but I want to definitely give him and his team all the credit, because this is, what they're doing is really cool. And, he's a great guy. And I hope that you guys will go support his site and check out what he's doing over there, because it's great stuff. I mean, this is fascinating stuff, but really cool.
GN Crossbone Folklore says, you mean like feed off of people's fear of them?
Maybe, like there's many spiritual entities that are believed to need fear to subsist. And if they're lower vibrational, I think the idea is that they're not connected to the divine, so they need to subsist off of that energy that people's fear provides them. And maybe there's something to that. I don't know. But, for whatever reason, they aren't just like a predator in that they just take what they want. So what you're saying, Sheldon, is a good point, because there does seem, even with ghostly and demonic stuff, there is a sort of permission that they have to be granted. And sometimes that permission is granted just through the fear. Now, because we have a natural spiritual energy around us, an aura, and our aura is a protection. It's our divine shield. And of course, faith and many things and strengthen that. And, and your beliefs, of course, can as well. But when you fear something, fear is basically a surrender. Being startled and being afraid are not the same thing. Like, everybody can get startled, but it's important not to surrender to fear, because the fear is the surrender. That's when you're acknowledging or possibly projecting that something has power over you. And that's why fear is so detrimental. And so it's important to, remain in control and to stand your ground. And so that probably is very true for these kind of things as well. So that's a great point, GN. Thank you for that. That's the beauty of the show, is the discussion is the beauty when we have dialogue about these things and share ideas and thoughts, because I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't know. This stuff is not known. But all we can do is throw around ideas and talk about possibilities, because nobody knows. As Wes says, in terms of the Sasquatch, nobody's got one in the garage they're studying, and it's the same for all of the paranormal. Nobody's studying these things at will. They go out to try to research them. They go out to try to learn things, and I think it's really powerful stuff.
I agree.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, but again, that's all thanks to Lon and his team for letting us use these reports on the show. Incredible stuff. Incredible.
Indeed.
Here's a report I got from the Daily Star, and this one has to do with Bigfoot. How are we doing? Yeah, this would be about the last one for the night, I guess.
Oh, wow.
It's gone fast, yeah. It says, and again, Daily Star, I don't know. It's dailystar.co.uk, and I think it's kind of tabloidy, but I might be wrong, so I don't want to misrepresent the Daily Star in the UK. It might be a credible newspaper of some sort, but I think it does kind of get tabloidy, so whatever. But let's check it out. It says, orange-haired Bigfoot chased me through the forest. I've had nightmares ever since. With no scientific proof of the existence of Bigfoot creatures, stories about terrifying encounters are rife, and now one hunter has shared his tale of supposedly being chased by a female Bigfoot. Oh, that's the footage that came out of Idaho here. Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh,
that's not. It's not the same. This isn't the same. It's just they happen to showcase that footage, and it's like 2 seconds long or something like that, and then it cuts. But anyway, I don't think it's legit personally, but it's not terrible. But it just leaves a lot of questions. So, a hunter based in Louisiana, U.S. In the United States, claims to have been chased by a female Bigfoot creature in an encounter so terrifying that he struggled to sleep for 2 years. When was this story? Is it dated? October 28th of this year. So it's a newer story.
Oh.
One man even, wait, where were we? While though there is no known scientific proof of the mythical creatures exist, there have been countless stories of reported sightings across mountainous regions of the U.S. over the years. That's not really factual. It's reports over everywhere. You don't have to have mountains. One man even claimed to have been terrorized by an 8-foot-tall Bigfoot creature, which allegedly began throwing telephone pole-sized trees at his house. There's actually a link to it, so I'll open that just to see. Now a hunter named Patrick has claimed that he was once chased by a female Bigfoot in Louisiana. Patrick explained on the Sasquatch Chronicles podcast, is an excerpt from Wes's show, that the strange course of events seemed to begin when the brush on the ridge in front of him suddenly exploded. Remembering, and something inside this brush takes off running, and I hear whack, whack, whack. I'll scroll down. Initially, the hunter explained that he believed the noise to be a deer, but this reassuring thought was quickly washed away by the events that followed. Patrick said he started to feel heat on his shoulder blades, and climbing up a hill, he heard something running down, passing him in the brush. Stopping to look, Patrick claims he came face to face with a Bigfoot creature, observing what I saw wasn't supposed to exist. It had 2 legs, my size, covered in orangish red hair. It's jumping from behind one tree, and it's in mid-flight. Its right foot is extended out, very muscular and thin. As she went behind the next tree, the sun backlit her, and I could see the colors of her hair, and the length of the hair, and the blonde split ends at the end of her hair. Scroll down. Not wanting to wait and find out if the creature was friendly, Patrick recalled that he raced off up a nearby hill trying to find the road where his car was parked. But Patrick claimed he continued to be stalked and realized their paths would intersect. Finally reaching the road, Patrick claimed that an icy confrontation took place, remembering, she's at the edge of the road, looking at me in broad daylight. Oh, this is the one we read where they had like a foot race. I remember this, so we listened to Wes's clip, right?
Oh.
And she scuffs her feet on the ground like a kid that don't get her way. This Louisiana native claimed that the Bigfoot creature caught up in seconds, and he was forced to confront the reality that she could easily catch him if she so desired. If she steps onto the road with me, I'm just going to spin and fire. That was the best plan I could come up with, he reflected. Eventually, Patrick remembered that he was forced to jump down a hill ahead of him and reach his truck, twisted an ankle in the process. And looking back on the encounter now, Patrick said he struggled to comprehend what had happened. He said, it was just a lot to process. I had nightmares for 2 years when I slept. I didn't really sleep for 2 years, but when I did, I was on that road running for my life every time. It was a nightmare. Yeah, that's actually an excerpt from the one that we played on the show. Do you remember that one, Sheldon?
It sounds familiar.
Well, it's the one where the guy was running and he heard the feet coming like, and then it passed him. You know, he was bolting with everything he had, and he said he was quick, but that thing he could just hear the boom, 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 and then it blew by him. And then,
he said it kicked a gear. Yeah, that's right.
And then he said that he came up to the clearing where his truck was in, and the Bigfoot stayed to the brush line going out around it, and he had a beeline straight for his car, and he said that, he found another gear. He said, I found another gear that I didn't know I had, and got to his truck, and then took off. But what a horrible situation.
Jeez.
Wow. How would that be to just set your soul on fire, huh?
Oh yeah, I want to just crawl in a hole and die at that point rather than face what was coming at me.
Yeah. This is the one that I opened. Okay, no thanks. Whatever. Where are we at for time? Since I didn't do a trail cam tear for the night, we're gonna read this one more and then we'll call it a night. But this is the link where the man was having telephone-sized poles or logs thrown at his house.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is. So let's read this one. This is from thedailystar.co.uk. And when was this one written? This is August 27th of this year. All right. So let's see what it says. A man recalled the story of a terrifying 24-hour long encounter with a Bigfoot monster where he claimed he felt like he was being hunted by a giant black shape late at night. And it says, a man has described a terrifying 24-hour encounter that left him fearing for his life when a Bigfoot creature supposedly threatened him in his home. The legendary Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, has never been proven to exist, but there are countless believers across the world who claim to have seen it. One such person is Travis, who claimed to have witnessed the two-legged hairy creature in Tennessee, in the United States. Coming home from work late one night, he explained he saw a huge figure jumping out of a bin and scrambling up a hill, pulling over 3 nice trees as it was going up the hill. It didn't take more than 2 seconds for me to say, well, that ain't no bear. When something is twice the size of a bear, you almost know it immediately, he said, speaking on the Forest Fleur podcast. I don't know that one, but, it's another one that's out there, apparently. Later on that night, Travis said he went out to his porch for a cigarette before he was threatened again by the beast. He remembered, while I was out there, there were at least 3 or 4 trees, and I mean full-size trees, coming crashing down onto the apartment building. It sounded like when you're outside in a thunderstorm. It was obvious that these were telephone pole-sized trees coming down onto the building. God, that's strong. Scroll. So then the next evening, when Travis arrived home from work, he came prepared, parking right next to his apartment door, and quickly running inside. Looking back, he suggested this had been a smart move, saying, had I not thought ahead to actually have done that, I think something really bad would have happened, and I'd just have been a missing person statistic. This thing was waiting in the driveway on the path where you would walk down towards my house. This giant black shape just stands up out of the bush and starts moving towards my backyard. It was at least 8 feet tall, and in my estimation, about 800 pounds, and it was just a giant black shadow. And this thing could literally just grab one end of my torso and just rip me right in half. Travis remembered feeling incredibly shaken by the event. He said the one thing you take away from an encounter is the fear factor. People talk about the hair standing up on the back of your necks. I've been afraid, but I've never felt this fear since or before that. I was being hunted. It wasn't an encounter for me. It was an occasion of when I had become the hunted. Yikes. Very freaky stuff, dudes.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Dudes and dudettes. Yeah, that is really
I'm not surprised exactly, but like just hearing that, they can toss telephone pole-sized logs, that's just... I'm not surprised they're that strong, but dang, that's strong.
That is really strong, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty terrifying stuff, and, as much stronger as a chimpanzee is to a human, and then as much stronger gorilla is to a chimpanzee. And then, again, you've got to multiply that to get to what a Sasquatch is, And it's literally like superhuman strength. There's just no other way to put it, like, literally. Cold Stairs, thank you. Jennifer and I love you both, Brent and Sheldon. Thanks for the great show. Love to you all in the paranormal family as well. Always great to be with you. Thanks for the stories, scares, and laughs. That's awesome. Thank you guys for being a part of it. That really is wonderful, and I really appreciate it. And for that, you get this. Thank you very much. It helps a ton. Helps to keep the lights on here on the portal. It's not easy to wind up a portal. I'm just saying. It takes a lot of juice. So
it does.
It does. A lot of personal juice, too. But I'm telling you, I wouldn't miss a show. I wouldn't miss a thing. I love being here with you guys, and I love that you're here with me, Sheldon. And I love that Don's here when he's here, too. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. We've got ourselves a family here, and you guys are definitely a part of that. So thank you very much for that, and thank you all for being here with us. Sheldon, anything in closing?
Absolutely. If you guys want to join the Discord, we got plenty of links, ways to communicate with us and the community in general. I'm going to throw the link right in the chat. And as well, I see 62 viewers and 35 likes. So if you could do us a big favor, it would mean the world to us. Just throw a like down there before you leave. Mm-hmm. And we love you all. Thank you so much.
We love you all. And special additional notice, if you guys wouldn't mind, we have a secondary channel. It's the Paranormal Portal Pieces. I'm going to put a URL in the chat. If you guys wouldn't mind, we're looking to get subscribers and people to check out the shows. These are basically 10 minutes to 15 to 20 minutes, anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes segments that we've taken from our 2-hour shows and made little pieces of on this secondary channel. So if you wouldn't mind going over to this link and subscribing, it would really help us a ton. That's another way you can help. I mean, obviously we love, monetary gifts. They're great, but there's so many other ways to help, and this is one of them. If you guys wouldn't mind subscribing and liking the shows, subscribing to this channel, subscribing to the pieces, and of course checking out the podcast, which will be coming out. The new episode will be coming out later tonight, and it's a episode entitled Demons Among Us. It was an interview I did with M.R. Gorga, who is an author of the book Demons Among Us. And it was a great discussion, and you might learn something about the demons. But anyway, we really appreciate all the different ways that you guys support us. And thank you for those of you that are helping to spread the word about the show to get other people to acknowledge it. But if you wouldn't mind going in and subscribing to the Paranormal Portal Pieces channel, where I just put the URL in the chat, it would mean a bunch. And check out the videos there. They're really good. And but basically what it is we thought we would start a secondary channel because not everybody has 2 hours or an hour to sit down and watch a show. And so we thought we would make little bite-sized episodes of those 2-hour shows and to show people what's going on. And maybe then they'll decide to make the investment, click the link, and go over and check the full show. But if not, the pieces are great episodes all on their own as well. Great laughs, great information, great discussions with a lot of incredible people. So we hope you will do that. So anyway, but that's all I got for you as well. Again, sorry I didn't pull together a trail cam terrorist for tonight, but it's just been one of those days. So, all right. One of those days. So it'll be a couple days now. This is our last show until our next live show on Wednesday. So remember, we do the live shows right here on this channel every Wednesday through Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you want to hop back in and see us again, you can do it on Wednesday. Otherwise, you can check out the videos that are in our archive on this channel. There's 1,080 or something like that. So there's lots of shows to check out if you need a portal fix. Hope you'll do that. But love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day and remember to laugh as much as you can. Cold Stare says, I have a Paranormal Portal coffee cup at work. Oh, cool. People always asking about it. God bless you. Thank you. Yeah, the Teespring is another way you can help as well. The link is in the description. You can check out Paranormal Portal gear such as t-shirts, mugs, stickers. There's the masks if you're still in a place that needs masks. So there's lots of ways to help support us. But thank you all so much. We love you all, and we'll be back on Wednesday night with the next 2-hour show. But keep your eyes peeled for the podcast coming out later. And that'll be on all the major podcast players: Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, and Castbox, and there's a gajillion other ones. So thank you, guys. That's all we got for you tonight. Have a great day at work. Have a happy Monday. All right. Yes. See ya.
See ya.
Woo!